In today's quick take video, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some strategies that you can use when you're feeling behind. This is not a happy place. Cal Newport's wife has talked about that look he gets in his face when in the week ahead he doesn't have enough time to do the deep work to get the important things done that he needs to do. All of us have faced this. I certainly have myself, and I was just recently working with somebody who faced this exact problem. As I think about it, I think of 3 strategies that I use to help myself when I'm in this situation. The first one is how do I make more time? Many of us think about it this way. There's the classic anti-pattern, which is I'll just take time from my personal time or my recharge time. We'll talk a little bit about some other strategies you can use for that. The other one is saying how could I get more done in the same amount of time? And those are really some of our high performance strategies. I'm going to start talking about those first. And the third strategy is actually being responsible. That means taking the hit, communicating out your concerns as quickly and as reliably as possible, and then being part of the team that helps the solution come together. First, how do you make more out of the time that you have available? This would be sort of the dream where you don't have to give up other things, you actually get the thing done, but you're worried. Why are you worried that you're behind? You think that you don't have enough time to do this. This happens to me, right? I'm optimistic, I want to do lots of things to help other people, it matters to me, and so often I get into the situation where I'm I don't think I have enough time to do these things well. The first strategy I try to encourage people to think about is, could I do this really well if I was super focused? If I was really working at a cognitive high performance level, what are the things that I would need in order to make that happen? The first is a really good plan. And often my spidey sense has said, hey, there's some risks here or things that I think are going to take a long time or based on previous experience or given the number of things happening in your schedule, you may not have the time to get to this. So the first thing is to make a really good plan. Get out all the worries that you want right in front of you so you can start to think about them clearly and rationally as opposed to emotionally. You think about all of those, you try to come up with a good plan, then you'll have a sense of is the time sufficient? The next thing, of course, is you may have enough time, but it's all blocked up and chunked out. So we'll talk a little bit about strategies that you can use to recreate those meaningful deep blocks that can help you really dive into something. That matters too. So we've talked a little bit about you prepare yourself to have a good plan to succeed with it. You're going to focus on creating the environment for you to work well in that. That involves not just blocking out the time, but creating an environment that you're productive in, you have the tools that you need for it, and then also that you are emotionally prepared, because you're not going to do your best work if you're feeling stressed. So using some of the techniques, yes, deep breathing, other things are necessary, but for me, the most reassuring thing is taking a pause, making sure I've got a good plan. So that's preparing yourself to do high performance work, getting the most out of those periods of time. If your time is all chopped up, that can be really hard to make sure that you're making progress on it. Just a caveat here, sometimes your plan involves a lot of wishful thinking. The key measure for me when I am thinking about a plan where I am going to be confident in delivering this is when I've answered the question, do I have enough time to do this? And do I have enough time to do this well? When I have enough time blocked out to do it well, I feel much more confident that I'm going to be able to do this thing. When you don't, right? When that's not clear and it's going to be I'll only get this done if everything works out really well, then it's really important to set a few markers earlier on where you say, look, I'm going to try to address the biggest risks first, and then I'm going to have a milestone. And if I've not made that milestone, I am going to just take the hit and communicate up to say hey, the possibility of delivering this late is now at risk, and I wanted to just talk and strategize. That's part of the be responsible. So it sort of loops back in. We'll talk a little bit more some of the strategies at the end. As you might have heard me talk about in mental contrasting with implementation intentions, creating that milestone point as an if this, then I'll do this action is much easier for our minds to do and much more likely for you to do something that's emotionally hard. So I highly recommend that you sort of create those milestone points for yourself if you have risky periods within it. So that's doing cognitive high performance work. Get the most out of the time that you have available to you. The second strategy, of course, is trying to make time. We talked a little bit about the anti-pattern is that I'm going to make this time with the discretionary time that I have, which in truth is probably some of the most valuable time with your family, time being present with others, time for your passion projects, hobbies, and time for rest and recharge. Many people sort of give this away as a demonstration of how committed they are to it, because the easy thing to measure is how many hours you're putting in and how effortful it is. As we've talked about, that's not the same as the value that you're generating and creating. Unfortunately, there's a default strategy for most people, and they can give it away not just in the immediate setting, but in an ongoing setting. And that results in some really unfortunate things like people's relationships deteriorating, people not getting to know their children as they've grown up around them, people not expanding or growing in different ways. A real detriment to human thriving and flourishing. So how can you make time? Well, in this one, I think about sort of 4 specific strategies. So one is you're going to take the time that's currently available in your schedule. You're going to block out the time dedicated to help you achieve this important goal that you have. Second one is to limit your calendar availability. Blocking out time on your calendar really matters, and I'm going to show you a technique that you can use in Apple Calendar, and likely there's an equivalent in Outlook, where you can really sort of create some openings for you in the time that may be coming up in the week ahead, where there's going to be a little bit more discretionary time, but you know they often get filled up. The other big thing is looking at the events that you currently have scheduled that are disrupting your ability to have deep work blocks. And that's developing the ability to find good ways to help reschedule meetings. So in dealing with existing meetings, calendar events, it's really important to use sort of some of the similar practices which you use in managing your tasks, right? So I go through, I just label them as 1, 2, 3, right? That's the importance of the meeting. And then I try to apply the sort of getting things done philosophy to these meetings themselves, which is one, can I delete it? Can I just send back a message and say, sorry, I can't come to this meeting this time? 2, can I delegate it? I say, I'm unable to come, but I'm sending so-and-so in my stead to help you move this forward. And then can I defer it? Right? Can I just write them and say, I'm sorry, I can't participate in this meeting today. Can we reschedule it to, and then sometime after you've been able to do your key risk things within this project that you're working on. So delete, delegate, defer. The level 1 meetings, you're probably going to have to stick to. Level 2 and 3 meetings, however, you're going to strongly try to do this one, especially for the level 3 meetings, you're going to strongly consider just deleting them. So responding and saying, I can't participate. So we've talked about, blocking off your calendar, restricting the availability. We've talked about rescheduling superpowers. And then the final one is a defense strategy, which is how to say no well. Other things will likely come up for you. And so figuring out how to say no well to those specific projects really matters. We've got some 3 separate sort of techniques that you can use for that. And I would say that the default for many people is they say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do this now, but why don't we schedule more time for that? It's really important to just take a pause point there because you actually have 3 potential strategies that you can use in that setting. So the one is, I'm sorry, I can't help you with this now. This is what I recommend the next action for you to do is. Right? And that's not involving you, you're handing it back to them. They're the ones that are responsible for it. The other one is, I see how important this is to you. I appreciate the work that you've done on it. The next person that I recommend you speak to is so-and-so. They'll help you with, right? So you're helping them move the project forward, you've sent it to the right person. And the third one is actually the one that most people have, but I think there's a way to do it really well, which is often to hand over a little bit of work to the other person. So I can see how important this is, I appreciate all the work that you've done on it. I don't have the time right now to give this the attention it deserves. Can you reach out to me again in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, right? And give me an update on it, and then I should be able to have the time to look at it in some detail. So the third one is the one that obligates you to more ongoing work, and so you need to consider are the other 2 appropriate. So those are the 4 strategies we think about in terms of making time, which is take the time that you have available by blocking those out for this actual work. Second, restrict your availability for other people to take over that time. Third is you're going to use your rescheduling superpowers, and you're going to use those 3 approaches to evaluate all of the calendar appointments that you currently have, which is, can I delete it? Can I just tell them I'm not going to come? Can I delegate it to somebody else? Send them in my stead to help things move forward? Or can I defer it to another time, which is going to be beyond this really important deadline for myself? And the fourth and final thing that you need to do is to be able to defend the time well until you've gotten beyond this risky period. And that's by saying no well. So we talked a little bit about how could you make the most out of the time that you have, which is by doing really high performance cognitive work and how to prepare yourself well for that. We've talked about how to make the most of the time that you have and how to make some time for yourself. And then the final one is being responsible. And this definitely happens sometimes, right? So I think that for many people, they're like, I have to kill myself to get the deadline, even though that you know that, wow, it might not even be possible for me to deliver that at a good enough level, right? Which will look bad on you. More important for many people, I think, is less the arbitrariness of the deadline, because there's sometimes the flexibility to move other things. But what they're really looking for is they want to work with somebody who's reliable, right? Can they be trusted to say that they'll deliver something? If they can't deliver it, then can they give me immediate feedback to say like when they can reliably tell me that they can deliver it, right? That can still keep projects moving forward smoothly. So that's the one about the final strategy, which is being responsible. And the key thing there is about response, right? So you've got this awareness, you've done a really good plan, you can see that you don't have enough time to do it well, or there are clear risks, or there's clearly going to be another deadline. The goal then is to communicate back as quickly and as clearly as possible. I'm sorry, I've looked into this some more. I realize that there's not enough time to do this project really well. Can we meet to talk about it so we can figure out a strategy to solve this together? Right? That's the one. what is the power of this? Yes, that's a bit of a hit. 2 is it shows people, especially if you do this soon enough, that you're being responsible and you're working towards finding a solution. And the other thing is that it opens up a bunch of help. Things that you thought you alone had to solve, but it turns out that there are other resources that can be dedicated to this important priority project. Or they can tell you that the priority of it is not as important and as crazy as you thought, and then you can re-strategize to make sure that you're working on the most important things. So these are some of the techniques. Let me show you a quick technique inside the calendaring system on Apple Mail that can help you restrict your calendar availability in an easy-to-do way. Many people, I advocate that they use like a calendar system to enable availability through a simple link. Right? I would not recommend that you stick this in your signature so that anyone can book it at any time. I do recommend that you have it so you can easily send it to people, and you don't have to do a lot of email communicating about when you have availability and when they have availability. One of you just sends a link and the other person can check their availability and find a spot that works for both of you. The value of these kinds of links, such as Calendly or SavvyCal or You Can Book Me, are that you can also set buffer zones, right? So you can say no appointments within 2 days, right? Or no appointments within 3 days, right? That's really important to set. If you're behind, you want to make sure that you've got some buffer of a number of days where people won't be booking meetings so you can claim all the time that's available in there. That's great. The other one is to restrict it to certain times of the day so you can have solid, reliable, deep work times. For me, that's in the morning, and I make time available only in restricted hours in the afternoon. For most people, they don't occupy all of my time, and it just means that there's some delay. For important people, I've sort of empowered them to say like, hey, if that's not working for you, then I need you to communicate with me in sort of some synchronous way so we can negotiate the best time to work. That can also be very efficient. These calendaring systems will also look at the calendars that you designate so they can identify if there's already a booking there and they don't overbook you. There's an easy way in your calendar that you can block out days further ahead using this functionality of these calendaring systems such that you don't only just get the 2-day block that you have, but say you're able to block out the first part of next week to really dive into this important project that you have. And that's marking yourself as busy for the entire day. So let me show you a quick tech hack that you can use in Apple Calendar such that you can block out entire days of the following week, say, that these calendaring systems then won't allow people to book in, which you can do on an ad hoc basis without going to those systems to make changes to settings and then forgetting to put them back. But just as you need to, you can go off and block out days or weeks in order to make sure you can do focused work. So I'm really behind, and in the following week, I need to block out these days here in the beginning of the week such that people won't book events with me and I can be really focused. So I select those days, and then I'm just going to put in busy. But that's not enough. What you need to do is to come down and make sure that you go show as busy. So that's an important hack that you can use to block off days so that you can quickly get enough work done. I use this frequently when I'm working towards deadlines, and I want to make sure the calendaring system doesn't book time around specific deadlines or events for me. Also super important to do for your vacations, and as we talked about in the Better Vacation video, to do a little bit afterwards as well so you can get caught up. So those are the 3 strategies, the big bucket strategies that we talked about in order to help you when you're behind. So we talked about first making the most of the time that you currently have by using your high performance techniques. Second, we talked about making time with those 4 sub-techniques. I'm going to block out the time I have. I'm going to make and restrict my availability using this calendar hack that we've shown. We're going to use the rescheduling criteria to understand if we can reschedule any of the following meetings. And the final one is being responsible, so you can communicate accurately and reliably and help the team move forward and get as much help as the team can make available for you to help it succeed. All right, hope this helps. Keep in flow. Bye.